Hello everyone, welcome to a Tim Talk where I share my thoughts, opinions, and philosophies as someone who has been doing model aviation for over a decade and as someone who is a mechanical engineer. So today we are going to be talking about PIDs and specifically should you bother tuning your PIDs in the modern era where the firmwares and default settings are pretty good. So I'm going to give some background, we're going to talk about the default tunes, and then I'm going to give the verdict. So starting off with background. A multi-rotor system is inherently unstable, unlike an airplane, and that is why we need PID gains and PID controllers in the first place. If you tried to fly a multi-rotor without any kind of closed loop control system, the multi-rotor would just constantly be trying to flip over on you and it would just be a mess. So that is why we need these flight controllers and PIDs in the first place. Now, it's not enough just to have a PID controller, you also need an appropriate set of PID gains. So with a non-ideal set of PID gains, in an extreme case, you could have complete instability of the multi-rotor, which could be exemplified with the multi-rotor just flipping over immediately after takeoff, oscillations that never die out, oscillating to the moon, or even smoking a motor. Now, in less extreme cases, with non-ideal PID values, the multi-rotor system will be stable, but may have undesirable response and control feel. So it may have excessive bounce back or excessive prop wash, it may just be sluggish, or it may have oscillations that eventually die out. So my point here is that whether or not you bother tuning your PIDs, PID gains and the PID controller are vitally important to the function of a multi-rotor. Now, my first tuning experience was many years ago with the KK2 board, which was kind of revolutionary at its time because it had a built-in screen and you could tune the P and I values, but no D values, with the 4 buttons. This thing is 8-bit, and if we were talking about tuning PIDs back then, I wouldn't be making this video because basically everyone tuned their PIDs because the firmwares and default settings were so bad. However, fast forward to today, and the default settings and the firmwares are much improved. So let's talk about the default PID tune on most firmwares. So the way I understand it, when the developers are choosing the values for the default PID tune, they generally are trying to choose values that are going to work on a wide range of multi-rotors and make all of them fly relatively decently. So whether that be a small aircraft such as a tiny whoop or even a really large aircraft such as a DSLR carrying cinematic rig, they at least want the system to be stable and have generally okay response and control feel characteristics. Now, this is definitely focused more towards your typical 5-inch freestyle build because that is what most people are using. However, they can't just tune a random 5-inch build to the ragged edge and then send that out as the default tune because people are going to have lots of issues such as smoking motors and oscillations and things I already mentioned, and that probably isn't going to go over well with the users. So generally, the default PID values are relatively conservative and will have a more sluggish feel. However, there are parameters, and they keep coming out with new ones that are added on top of the kind of base PID values to really tart up this default tune and make it feel better than it actually is. So things such as feed forward, I-term relax, D-min, etc., are all kind of modifiers thrown on top of the default tune to make it feel better without requiring the user to tune their PIDs. And this does work to an extent. However, the main point I want to make here is that the default PID values are leaving performance on the table because they are tuned conservatively. So that brings us to the question, should you bother tuning your PIDs in the modern era of drones? And I think it depends on who you are as a pilot. Back when I first started flying, if you were a beginner, you would still learn how to tune your PIDs because they were so bad that it was hard to learn how to fly on an untuned quad. However, that can be a bit of a mess trying to learn how to fly and learn how to PID tune at the same time. So I would say if you are a beginner, just focus on getting practice in with the sticks, learning how to maneuver the multi-rotor, things like that. And then maybe later on you can dabble in PID tuning if you feel the need. Also, if you are just out there to have fun and you don't care about performance, that is totally fine. Having fun is kind of the point of doing all this. So if you enjoy how your quad flies now and you don't want extra performance out of it, there's really no need to bother tuning your PIDs. However, if you care about performance at all, I would say definitely it is still worth tuning your PIDs, because there is performance being left on the table by the conservative default PID values. And this is kind of where I see a lot of people take a non-ideal path when it comes to improving their multi-rotor's performance. A very common thing to do is, if you want more response, better control feel, is just to move to bigger motors. And I think that's fine if you've already tuned your PIDs first. And that is because I view the default PIDs as a bottleneck in the system's performance. You want to address that bottleneck before you move on and try to improve elsewhere in the drone. Because the default tune is so conservative, it is highly unlikely that the default PID values are maximizing the performance of your current motors in terms of snappiness and response. So if you're going for that extra response and control feel, tune your PIDs first to eliminate that performance bottleneck, and then you can reassess whether or not you need to spend money on those bigger, heavier motors. Now, another place where PID tuning becomes important is if you are having issues with your setup. If you're having oscillations or an unacceptable amount of bounce back or things like that, what I see a lot of people do is they will just switch between firmwares to see which one works best. And that is a kind of roundabout approach to actually addressing the root of the problem. The root of the problem is not whether or not you're running Betaflight or KISS or EmuFlight or Falco X. The root of the problem is going to be something in the tune. So it makes the most sense to just address the tune and not just randomly switch firmwares and pray that something works. And lastly, I think a lot of people are scared of PID tuning, or they don't want to put the time into it. However, there is a big return on the time you invest into learning how to PID tune, because this is a skill that transfers to every single build that you own and every single build that you're going to own in the future, just like stick time. Learning how to PID tune will improve the performance of every single quad you will own in your lifetime, because this is a skill you will learn and keep with you. And you can't say that for any part that you can buy. If you buy a set of motors, that is confined to a single quad and the performance of a single quad. If you learn how to PID tune, you can maximize every single setup that you have and every single setup that you are going to own. So to summarize, should you bother tuning your PIDs? If you are a beginner or you're just out there to have fun and you don't care about performance, don't bother. The default tune is pretty good. However, if you care about performance whatsoever, PID tuning is going to get you extra performance no matter what your setup is, and it is a skill that's going to stay with you and improve the performance of every single quad you will own in your lifetime. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, maybe even learned something from it. If you did, please make sure to give it a like. Let me know down in the comments below what other things you want to see me chat about in future Tim Talks. And if you are not subscribed to this channel already, I would really appreciate it if you take a second and click that subscribe button. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can support me on Patreon, which will also get you access to the exclusive Timmy RC Discord server. And lastly, if you can't get enough of me here on YouTube, I have an Instagram page, timmy.r.c. Thanks for watching.